Sorry for the delay. Michelle Histon here, Executive Director of BPHL, and I'm really, really excited to be with Jen Devor today, a friend and a colleague for many years now. Jen is the Civic Impact Manager at the Economy League. Hi, Jen. Thanks for joining.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I think like anytime we use tech, there's challenges, and I got a glimpse of how the BPHL team works through their challenges, and it was very impressive. So
thank you. We had a little bit of a platform issue today for those who are watching. So we are back and we are live, and we figured it out.
yeah.
So I'm so thrilled to be with Jen, who I just love and admire so much. And Jen, I guess let's start by, you're at the Economy League now. Tell us the role that the Economy League plays in Philadelphia.
Yeah, sure. So the Economy League has been around for 111 years, if you can believe it. They are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. And what I love about the organization is the way they describe themselves as a think and do tank. And I just think that's like a really interesting way to phrase it. The think side focuses on research, data analytics, impact studies. We do this independently, but then we also have a consulting arm. So we work with government agencies, foreign nonprofit sectors to do these reports. And then, we also understand that from doing this research that we are able to identify the challenges and opportunities that affect the greater Philadelphia region. And then we take the do part. So the think tank part is, the traditional, research and analytics. And then the do part is creating programming that addresses these challenges and opportunities. And so we have a program called PAGE, Philadelphia Anchors for Growth and Equity, where we work with major institutions to increase local and diverse purchasing. We have Global Philadelphia Leadership Exchange, also known as GPLEX, which I know so many people have been on over the years, but it's a convening of leaders that takes place in Philadelphia and then other cities every other year. So we can not only learn from ourselves, but learn from our peers and counterparts across the United States. And then I was hired to run a program called Impact Labs, which really puts, I think, the Economy League like a big step forward into the civic innovation world. We are looking to drive what we call shared solutions, which is basically looking to see what's going on in a community level, block by block. What are people doing to address issues that affect their neighborhoods and their communities? And then how do we put a jetpack on that and scale it and help them execute it in a bigger way? And so we're actually working on a project that's along those lines with Independence Blue Cross, focusing on millennial health and millennial mental health. But, obviously that's still in development, and I'll have more to come on that. But that's like the big scope of what we do.
I love that. I love the do part, right? The think part is critically important, but in my day job, we do innovation work and we do design work, and there's always a bias toward action. So I really love that you guys have that bias toward action and the doing part. And I really couldn't think of somebody better than you to be in that new role, because you are such a community person. So I love that. But before we talk about that a little bit more, tell me about your show, The Pivot.
Yeah, so, I think it's funny, and Michelle, this is how we recently reconnected, is because we've both found ourselves in these like talk show host roles over the last few weeks. So, as I mentioned, I started at the Economy League just recently. So February 10th was my first day. And then a month later, we got sent home because of COVID-19. And all of our programming, just like everyone else across the city, got, paused and put on hold. And, people had to really step back and reevaluate how do you approach the current situation. And so our executive director, Jeff Hornstein, really challenged our team and said, what new ideas can we come up with in the wake of a global pandemic that we can still exercise this think and do tank programming and be a relevant and resourceful entity in all of this, because that's what we want to do. We want to connect people and we want to get shared solutions. And how do we apply that to the COVID-19 pandemic? And so we came up with this idea that we call The Pivot, and it's a talk show style web series where we interview leaders across sectors on how they're shifting their businesses, changing their plans, but still really maintaining their goals in wake of COVID-19.
I love that. I've been saying today is like, it's like a mashup. It's like, the BPHL Fireside Chat with the pivot. And I love that. It's like when Scooby-Doo had the Harlem Globetrotters on, right? Or Sonny and Cher.
Well, no, absolutely. And I think it's great. And this is what we're all about, right? Like Philadelphia is such a social community and city. And I really miss going to networking events and hearing what other organizations are doing or running into people on the street. And I think people are rising to the occasion of how to address these issues and how to kind of not even just address issues, but just how to stabilize in all of this. And, we're known for innovation as a city. And so we wanted a platform where people can tell their story and really inspire others that are also considering their pivot about what they can be doing and get inspiration that way.
I love that. That's so exciting. And we all need a little inspiration these days, right? So that's great. I really, really appreciate that. Speaking of pivoting, Jen, you've done some pivoting in your career. So when you and I first met, you were at Campus Philly, who
Yes.
we love. They're a good friend and partner. And then you ran for city commissioner in 2019. So I think some of the work that really is strong in everything you do, or the thread across everything you do, is this sense of community and community building, which is one of the things I love about you. I believe in our city so much, and we need folks like you who really just believe in lifting us up and pulling people together and galvanizing people. So I wonder if you could share your thoughts on how people can stay civically engaged at just an unprecedented time when we all are at home a lot more and connecting this way.
Yeah, I think that the way I would answer this question 6 months ago would be so different, and the lack of in-person engagement really affects civics, because when you're in person, there's a level playing field. There's more opportunity to be understanding and to listen and to really build trust with people, which I think civic engagement is so much built on trust and either trusting a system or a process, as they say. That's been hard to shift. But I think just, continuing to have a dialogue right now is so important. And especially dialogues that, of course, make us uncomfortable. Those are the most important ones to have. Always talk about voting, right? Voting is a nonpartisan issue. I think that's incredibly important to remember, and one that everybody can and should participate in. And, continue to be a resource to your networks, making sure that you're providing not just, information, but credible information. Pay attention to how you consume your news, and really do that extra follow-up. If you see something posted online, like, where is that link from? What else has that author written? And just continue to have the dialogue. And then I think too, like, as we start to slowly reopen and get back into being in person, like, don't let what's been happening to us as a city and a country, and it's not just the global pandemic too, right? It's addressing systematic racism and inequities that have always been there and are really coming to a head right now. Just continue to have these conversations and not let this be a moment that passes.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're right. It's incredibly important. And, in some ways it's, I think some people are finding that while we're really busy throughout the day, I know a lot of us are on Zoom calls and Skype calls all day long. But, our evenings are freer. We're not doing the commuting necessarily, many of us, right? We're sitting in our homes. And I know for me, that's given me more time to reach out to friends and to have those good conversations and say, here's where I'm at, what's going on, how can I help, how can I support? So I love that. I think just continuing to be a resource for others too has been really, really important. And, finding new ways to connect.
Yeah. And that's why I love BPHL, right? Because it is a massive platform to share ideas, hear different opinions, understand different leadership styles. Philadelphia is a very creative city, and so we have to put that on a platform. I'm very excited to talk to you today also about what BPHL is doing. Before we get into your own pivot, like what was BPHL going to look like before COVID-19 really dramatically changed the world and the way we operate?
Yeah, I'm so excited. This is our first talk we've done where we talked a little bit more about the festival. And It's our second year. We really feel so grateful and lucky to have pulled off an amazing event last year because we're new at this. And for our second year, our goal was we're gonna go bigger than last year. We're gonna have a bigger festival, which is hard to imagine. Last year we had 3 days, 234 events, over 400 speakers across 15 locations. So we thought, gosh, we really knocked it out of the park year one, which was great, except now the pressure's on for year two. So we were planning a bigger festival, we were planning a concert, we were planning all kinds of really, kind of fun interactions to step up our game. And of course, then this happened, and we spent a lot of time thinking about what does that mean. So we went from.
I was just saying, it happened right before South by Southwest, where we were going to also collaborate on the PHL panel for Amplify Philly, right? I remember that. And I, just even like knowing at that moment that South by Southwest wasn't happening. I mean, I'm sure given your leadership role with BPHL, that's right where your mind went.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, it was, you're right. It was literally the week before South by that our office said, okay, everyone's going to move to work from home. And we were going, okay. And I'm an internal optimist. In the beginning, I was still in this mode of like, oh yeah. But by the fall, it'll be fine. So, I think I was still really optimistic that we would continue to be in person. And of course, as we've progressed here and we're in, I don't know, week 10, 12, 1,000 of quarantine.
I looked it up today because my 7-year-old daughter was asking me. We're in week 13, I believe.
Week 13, lucky 13. Time no longer has meaning. It feels like week 10,000 in some ways.
Yeah.
But we just realized that, to borrow your term, we had to pivot and really move to a new format. So not long ago, we announced that we'll be doing a blended format this year, moving to primarily virtual content like many folks are doing. And we do hope to still do some small group offline, more in-person experiences. But that will all depend on guidelines and where we are as a city. So that's the goal, which I'm really excited about.
And what was the process like going through and planning all of these new elements? The term like a blended program, I feel like we're going to hear that more and more with other big events. What was the planning process like on that?
Well, you know what, it was, it's been, now I can say it's fun. In the beginning, again, I think with anything, I think with all of this new scenario, a lot of us are going through, I went through a mourning period of, hey, I'm not in the office anymore. I miss seeing my team every day. With BPHL, I went through a mini mourning period of okay, we're not going to be in person. What does that mean? And what does it look like, for the whole festival? But it's become a really fun challenge. I've been saying, we didn't know how to do a festival last year and we figured it out. And now we don't know how to do a virtual festival, but we're going to figure it out and it's going to be amazing. So it's a really fun challenge now. And I think it's been interesting. It's kind of stretched me from a leadership perspective in that not only are we now planning, in some ways we're starting over in our planning. In the beginning, we thought wow, we're so far ahead. We started in January this year. We have a whole 9 months to plan, whereas last year we pulled this together in maybe 6 months or less. Wow. And this year, it was crazy. And this year we thought, well, we started so far ahead of time. And then we found ourselves in May kind of oh yeah, we're going to wipe the slate and start all over because we're going to do a different format. So it's been a fun challenge, but it's certainly been a challenge because, of course, added to that is our team is not together. We're not seeing each other every day. I mean, we are seeing each other, but we're not seeing each other in person every day. We have a rule on our team. We have our cameras on all the time when we're doing meetings, and every other team is like, really the camera on? We're like, oh yeah, turn the camera on. We don't care what you look like. But just connecting with each other and seeing one another is really important. So anyway, it's been a really fun process figuring out how to do all of this.
Yeah, no, and that's great to hear that it's been a good experience and certainly stretched a lot of skill sets and way of thinking about things. But I appreciate what you said about the mourning period, because you really do have to give up plans and just accept and surrender to the universe that what you had in mind is not going to happen. And I feel like that was something that I struggled with. With other programs and projects I was working on. And I know a lot of people in the event planning space in particular that had a tangible experience lined up that was not going to happen. And I think it's important that we do take the time. I always have this expression, you have to feel your feelings. Yeah. And it's true. You have to really experience that sadness and accept it, and then you can move on, and you go from, like, from mourning to grieving, and to being in a place of acceptance. So I think that's great to talk about, and we should remember as we go, because we don't know there's so much uncertainty, right? And there's so much like stop, go, just in general. And so just, I think it will help us be better prepared when we have to pause again to, once to have those feelings felt.
Yeah, no, you're right. And you know what? I think acknowledging and sitting with our feelings for a minute, that's okay, right? And at the end of the day, we talk so much in innovation about the need to be flexible and the need to be able to, abandon things and say, hey, this doesn't work right now. I'm going to move on to something else. And that's where we are, right? And that is really, it's forced us to really, walk what we talk when it comes to innovation and saying, look, we can be flexible. We're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I feel really fortunate that we've been able to do that, that our team is able to do that, that our leadership is able to do that. We've really been lucky that people get it, right?
Yeah. So, and it's being flexible, and it's like you have to have like a high risk tolerance. And that's something we talk about all the time at the Economy League is you have to be able to be okay with not knowing an outcome and the risk of failing. But then you think about failing is lessons learned. And then what you do with that is the next step to success. And so I think this hopefully will increase, this situation of having to be flexible and stepping outside comfort zones. And I hope it increases risk tolerance for more organizations and companies, because you're right, that's where innovation comes from.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. We talk about that a lot. So yeah, here we are. That's what we're living in right now.
So you're going to do a blend of in-person and online events. Like what, and I know it's still early, and I'm sure you're still figuring out the final details, and of course everything will be compliant with CDC regulations, but I'm curious to know what, like, if you can give us some, like, a taste of what some of the smaller in-person events will be like.
Sure.
And in addition to the virtual stuff, because everyone's like zoomed out. We can't just have like a Zoom meeting for things anymore, right? Which is like, I've definitely been to some exciting Zoom meetings, which I never thought I'd say before in my life, but I have. I even did Zoom karaoke, which was but like we have to kind of move on to other platforms, and there's so much innovation in the tech space. So yeah, I'd just love to hear kind of what you're envisioning for the two sides of BPHL.
Yeah, well, so yes, we are zoomed out. I have not done Zoom karaoke yet, but I am here for it. And let's do this. Let's do it at the end of this. I don't know. But I think first and foremost, we are pivoting to focus not just on innovation, but innovation to fuel recovery. And that I think is what's so exciting about this year. And that's what I get really jazzed about, because we are all about, Philadelphia and how do we boost the region. And that's why we're looking at how do we use innovation to help our city recover following the pandemic. So with that, a lot of our content and our experiences will be geared on topics for recovery. So there was an article that came out this week that talked about the fact that the Chamber of Commerce, with leaders across the city, has identified buckets of areas for recovery, and we'll be aligning our content with those areas for recovery so that we really can tie into that and focus on things like, transportation and healthcare and higher ed. So how do we use innovation in those areas to come back as a city and a region? And then from an in-person perspective, what we hope to be able to do is to drive traffic back to our amazing cultural institutions, to get people back out and about in small and safe ways, in the ways that they can, and really just get people excited about being around town again, which I think we all are. But we're also excited, I think that we're really excited about trying to see the opportunity in all of this. And that is, we always anticipated BPHL would become a more nationally focused event, always held here in Philly, always to show off that we are a world-class city. And now that we will have some virtual content, we have the opportunity to attract a more national audience. And what's amazing about that is we want to show people what Philadelphia has to offer. We want people to understand why they should come to live here, to work here, to visit here. So we think that the festival will give us an opportunity. We're looking at doing things like streaming on location at different places around the city that are really incredible. We're looking at innovation tours at spots around town. We're looking at behind the scenes tours. So we'll have big announcements coming out in the coming weeks about specifics, and we're talking to some Philly fan favorites that we hope will make an appearance. So more to come, but really just focusing on getting people back out and about into the city they love, and also virtually doing some connections. I think anytime you have to make a pivot, I think it's really important to look at the DNA of what you're trying to do. And one big part of the DNA of BPHL is connectedness. It's trying to build connections like this, right? So we're looking at how virtually can we make sure people are connecting in a meaningful way. And it doesn't feel like a Zoom call, right? It feels like, wow, I really got to make some meaningful connections and friends coming out of this, because that's our big hope for BPHL.
Yeah, no, and really, because BPHL is taking place in September, right? What are the dates?
So September 15th to 17th. So it's not too far away.
No, it's not. And this might very well be, I think it will be at least one of the first events or, programs that will start to ease people back in. So it's not only like not to put more pressure on the situation, but you have to think about it that way too. Like, we're not going to be used to this. Like I live in South Philly, and I walked down Passyunk Ave, and I saw people with outdoor dining, and it like scared me. Like, I didn't know what to do. So it's like do I pass them on the side? And I do think it's great. And like, I think it's awesome to see businesses reinventing and pivoting themselves too. But I think the timing of BPHL is going to be such a big step forward into re-entering and to reopening. So I think that's great that there's so much thought put behind it, and that kind of like feel-good feeling of being with your colleagues and associates, and it's almost going to feel like a reunion for groups of networks.
So. Yeah. We really want that. That's great.
Yeah. And the global aspect too. On the pivot, we interviewed Tracy Bralla from University City Science Center early on. And she was talking about how that's exactly what happened with Venture Cafe, the global platform that they were able to create, not just with viewers, but with speakers and content, is awesome. And so I do see that more of that World Heritage platform opening up for Philadelphia as a result of this, which is great. Yeah,
that's what we want, right? That's exactly what we want. And Tracy and the Science Center, they are friends of ours, and they're doing amazing work, and they work with us for BPHL, and they should definitely get a shout out, because they've been doing amazing virtual program every single week, every Thursday. So yeah, there's just so much good stuff happening. And I think, there's a lot of unknown, like you said. There's a lot of uncertainty happening, and there are a lot of big things going on in the world that we really need to think about and talk about. And then on the other hand of it, I think it's exciting to think about these new formats and new ways of building connections. So we're really excited and grateful to continue working on this and bringing it to life for this year.
Well, that's exciting. Well, so what, I'm going to be totally transparent. I don't know how much time we have left.
I was just looking at the clock too. We started a little late. We're almost out of time. It is 12:31. And people might need to, go eat their chicken salad sandwich before their next meeting starts. So we should probably wrap up in the next minute or so. But before we do, tell us how people can watch the pivot.
So great. And I was just going to, I was going to close with asking you more about PPHL. So this is perfect. So the pivot is, we do 2 episodes a week. We are wrapping up season 1, but they will have 2 more weeks of programming left. They are released Tuesday and Thursday of every week. You can find them at economyleague.org/thepivot, but you can also find them on all of our social media at Economy League, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook and LinkedIn. So we'll post them on our website, and then you can find them on social media as well. We've done, I think by the end of the season, we'll have about 22 episodes. And so what we'll be doing is recycling that content, and it'll be available. It'll be evergreen and promoted all summer, through our own outlet. So, there's lots of content there to help inspire people as they consider their own pivot.
That's awesome. I love it. So check out the pivot. It's easy to find. I found it like that. So go to the Economy League's website and check it out, or follow on social. Like Jen said, you can find it in a variety of places. And I'll tell you all to buy or go and register for BPHL. So the last thing I'll mention is that tickets are completely free this year because of the current situation. We're really excited to be offering registration for BPHL for free. We are positioning this as a fundraiser or benefit for COVID-19. So when you register, you'll have the option of making a donation to the PHL COVID-19 fund, and we'll have some special events and things that you can attend for an additional donation. So look out for those, but go to bphlfest.com and you can register starting right now. Registration's open.
Great.
So Jen, thank you so much.
I'm going to do it.
Yes, I love that. Everybody watching should do it too. Thank you so much. It's so fun to talk to you, and just we're fellow South Phillyites and on other ends of South Philly, and it's nice to connect this way and to see you, and we'll see you on the pivot. So talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and have a great afternoon. Bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye.